2024. I'll give you the honors. Go ahead and give it to me 15-1.
Great. You're gonna let me go first. I appreciate that. Thanks. All right, time to make some people angry. So, from 15-1, I got 15 Toronto, 14 DC, 13 Charlotte, 12 New York City, 11 Montreal, 10 Nashville, 9 Miami, 8 Chicago, 7 Red Bull, 6 New England, 5 Philly, 4 Atlanta, 3 Columbus, 2 Cincinnati, and 1 Orlando. And you know it's not biased because I put Orlando 1.
um, there's really only one that we're there. There are two that we're pretty far off on. But everything else is damn near identical, actually.
I feel like there's like a cutoff line, like 1
Yes.
through 10, and then it's like, all right, these 10 are in this first bracket, and then the last 5 are in their own bracket.
Yep. And that's kind of where I was thinking about this was you got like we talk about how there are like 7 or 8 teams that could be pushing for the top four in the East, but realistically it's 4 and 4, and you're looking at who can jump 1 or 2 spots to get in there. Um, so we'll talk about it. Well, actually, there are three now that I'm looking a little bit closer. Yeah, well, there's still a little bit there, but let me give you mine. 15, I've got the single worst team in MLS history, Toronto FC. In 14, I've got Charlotte. 13, New York City. 12, I've got Miami. 11, I've got Nashville. 10, I've got DC. 9, I've got New England. 8, I've got Montreal. 7, I've got Chicago. 6, I've got Philly. 5, I've got Red Bull. 4, I've got FCC. 3, I've got Atlanta. 2, I've got Orlando. And 1, I've got my Supporters Shield winners, Columbus Crew. Sorry, I don't know if we're doing that prediction later, but that's my
We could cover that prediction as well. I don't know if I mentioned mine. I think, and it pains me to say it, but I think Orlando is my supporter shield winner.
All right. There you go. Now you have it. Um, First big difference, like I said, I think we both are not high on TFC, even though they did just sign a defender, or they're working on signing an Irish 33-year-old defender because
Oh, that's it. The problems
they're in.
problems fixed. Shoot them up the league.
Columbus, look out, baby. Um, Charlotte also not high on. New York City not high on. But let's talk DC first. I've got them just missing out. You've got them pretty well out. What's your thought process there?
I just don't think that they're really much better than last year. And I think maybe this is a little tougher for me because I wasn't on the not so deep dive, so I don't get the insider information. But
Oh, that's right. You did miss
I
that one.
I did not like the roster build that they had last year. I think they went and brought in a bunch of aging players, like a win now kind of move, and it didn't work out as I predicted, of course, because I'm never wrong on predictions. And now I don't see a situation where all of a sudden that just clicks and all of a sudden they start shooting up the table and doing way better. I think they've got good young players at the center back spot. I think they're actually really exciting and young at the center back spot. Outside of that, I just think it's an aging team that just hasn't worked. I mean, I'm a big Aaron Herrera fan. I think that was a good addition, probably their best addition, in my opinion, in this offseason. The midfield is it's decent. Click was pretty good last year, but again, wrong side of 30, another year older. Don't know what he's going to bring to the table. Is he going to be able to match that level from last season? Russell Knaus, like I think he's the one that I would feel most a shoe in for to be good this season. Like I think he's just consistently been probably well, actually, I'm not gonna say that because I don't watch DC. So let me not say things I don't know about.
What
I
do you mean?
know
The entire podcast for the last 5 years have been you saying things you don't know about. What do you mean?
they brought back Pirani, which I know was a big move for everybody. Didn't get much game time last year, so I really have no clue what to expect from him. Obviously they saw enough that they wanted to bring him in full time. But we'll, I guess, see what happens there. I'm not sold yet. I feel like that's a position where I'd want to see him prove it before I say that he's like their game changer there. And I think Benteke has been a great signing for them, but again, another year older on the wrong side of 30. If he gets no service, I just don't think he's going to do much. And I don't see a team that's going to provide much service for him this season. So I don't like the roster build. I don't see enough of a change from last year that suddenly boosts them higher. I think the other teams around them got better, and I don't think DC got much better.
So, you know, I was on the deep dive, and the feeling right now around DC is excitement, and everybody loves Troy Lesane, and it's very, very, it's a something I understand, right? He coached my team for a half a season, 3/4 of a season, um, and he's got certain players there that are going to make it competitive, right? Jared Stroud's going to press the heck out of everybody who goes in there. Um, Doble Air, I bet, is probably going to be in that same mix of players who can do that. Um, I like the signing of Matty Peltola, excuse me, in where he can play as a 6 or as a 5. Flexibility there. Benteke, I think, is still going to be solid. Bringing back Priani is going to be big, and then the sleeper for me is Christian Fletcher is back, who went over to Swansea's U21s and absolutely lit the world on fire. And I think he has a really big breakout year. That being said, I think that they're still 1 year away. You mentioned they're super exciting, if yet unproven, at center back, which I agree with. I really, really, really still don't like their goalkeeper situation. I think their goalkeepers are very, very weak. So I think that they're 1 year and maybe one move outside of being into that playoff spot. But I think Troy is going to get them to buy in, going to get most of them to buy in, but there's still going to be people who are going to say, I'm not really big on this pressing thing. They're going to get broken down and then they're going to get beat. So I see DC being 1 year away, but I see them being close this year, like playing to the last day.
You and I, very similar to last year, on very different wavelengths for DC. I think this team is moving in the wrong direction roster wise. So
Where did they finish last year?
they were close, but they were also out before even decision day, I believe. They
That's
got
right.
12.
They were the team that was in the playoffs but eliminated on decision day
Yeah.
because they had no more games left and they couldn't figure it out, or they
They
didn't have a chance to fix it.
they finished 12th. I mean, they were in that mix on like that. There was that range from 8th to 13th. That was a 3-point range.
Right.
They were in there last year.
Right. And I don't think they're any worse off than they were last year. If not, I think they're a little bit better, but I still think that they're a step away. So
I think they are I think they are moving in the wrong direction because one, as I mentioned before, I think the East got better overall. Like majority of teams I think got better in the East. And their key players are just only getting older and in like a bad way, not necessarily like a youngster getting into his prime. We're talking about Click, who's 33, Benteke's 33. Um, I don't think Pedro Santos is a key player, but he's also 35. And then Tyler Miller net is now on the wrong side of 30. Steve Birnbaum, 33. Like their key players are older, and I just don't think they're going to be able to consistently keep up the level that they'll need to get this team into the playoffs.
okay, and like I said, that's not a ridiculous. Like it's not like you put them first and you're like, this is the best team. They're both out of the playoffs regardless of who you ask. So the next one though is somebody who we have them out and one has them in, and that's Inter Miami. So we've covered this one a lot, right? Like this is something that we've talked about a lot. I truthfully believe this team is going to buy into the 3 cup competitions that they're in, 2 or 3. There's been a report that U.S. Open Cup is on life support again, so we'll talk about that later. Not this episode, probably next episode, but they're going to go all in. And when they get into the league, they're going to just rotate until they absolutely can't. I don't think the players hold up. I think players are getting hurt. I don't think their depth is good, if not unproven. But I think that it wouldn't shock me if they miss the playoffs. Like it just the build feels bad. They're starting to go through. They just lost Gregory again, like permanently gone. The depth pieces that they have are now being forced to be moved so that they become roster compliant by actually, this is being posted the day after their first game. So to hope that they're roster compliant by the time they get there. It just feels like this has been a poorly planned gamble to get big names in the door, win 3 or 4 game competitions, and then fix it next year. So it wouldn't shock me if they miss it this year.
I think I mean, we talked about it, and I'm in agreement that I think they are mainly looking to win trophies. But I think optically, they are just not in a position where they can miss the playoffs. Like, I just don't think you could kind of get away with it last year because they had such a bad first half before everybody came in. They were already like in a really bad spot, and then like key players like Messi got hurt and then wasn't able to play. And you can make a million different excuses as reasons why they couldn't make the playoffs. This year, there really just is no like excuse for it. And I think it'll look bad on the organization if a 9-team playoff system, if you can't get into a 9-team playoff system, I think the quality is there. They have to manage their rotations right. It's not like they don't have the depth to do it. They have like 38 players on their roster. Like, it's outrageous how many people they have. I'm sure not everybody's going to be registered. I'm sure there's a cap somewhere on how many players you can have, but there are so many different players here. To your point, a lot of them I think are a bit unproven, but that doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be bad. There's plenty of high potential guys on this team, like I think tons of them that have a lot of potential. I think people took pay cuts to come here and play with Messi. I think that's a benefit to Miami. Like, I think they're getting quality talent that's better than what other teams are able to bring in because they have someone like Messi on the team. I think they're going to manage it correctly. I trust Tata Martino to get it done, to play and be competitive in cups, and to also just do enough to get themselves in the playoffs here. And then that's when I think things, if they do it correctly, that's when things will click once they hit MLS Cup playoffs. Hopefully, you keep your guys relatively healthy, and then that's when you make your run. I don't see any, like you had said on the episode, they're not going to just go out and into games and be like, okay, we're just throwing this game like we're not playing to win. They're going to play to win every single game.
Right.
And they have, and the quality may not necessarily be there to win every game, but there's a lot of depth in this team. I think they're going to be able to afford some injuries and still be able to bring quality to the field. So I think there's enough here that they can be competitive enough to get into the playoffs. I think they have to get into the playoffs, if I'm being honest.
Dude, I'm just like I'm looking at this back line and it looks awful. It just
It
looks
is, yeah.
so bad.
But
And that's my
they're
worry. My worry
down
is
3 center backs right now.
and that's my worry, right? We're going in, we're playing this MLS 4.0 style that is going to rely heavily on attack. Our defense is going to try and hold things together like, putting a car with band-aids. And then these attackers are going to get hurt, or they're going to need to rest, or they can't walk, or whatever it is. And now you're going to expect that defense to hold up against. I mean, I saw a video. Miami turned the ball over. Messi is 3 feet away from the ball, and he just stops. And they just run by him. And they're now being countered, and they're playing 11v9, basically, because Suarez isn't pressing either, right? Like, the second they lose that ball, because of whatever reason, that bounce in the field, missed touch by a youth, whatever. It's 7v4 going the other way, and good luck trying to stop it. Like, I think this is going to be bad for them. But
yeah, I mean, I think they're going to be a bit of a mess defensively, but I think that's the system they need to put in place. They can't have Messi and Suarez pressing all game long to win the ball back. Those guys will get exhausted and then get injured and miss like so many games during the season. If they want to keep them healthy, they need to have them just kind of, you know, putting their effort in when they have the ball into attack. I think they have to. I think the other players on the field have to probably be aware of that these guys aren't going to press, and that's the way it needs to be set up. And they're going to have to kind of step up a little bit more to make up for that.
this team needs to be the single most efficient attacking team in MLS this year. Because
Which is going to be
if they don't
hard.
score, 40% of the time that they make an attacking move, they're going to be TFC level bad.
I don't think they're going to be TFC level bad, but
is it a bold
we'll
prediction?
see.
Who knows? Stick around. New England, I had them just sneaking in. You had them just outside the playing game. What's your thought there? And then I have one more question before we go on to our awards.
Okay. So for New England, I like the build that they have together. I think there was the team was what I think second place in the East last year before all the like all the off-field issues hit, like the Petrovic transfer and then the Bruce Arena stuff, and that completely I think derailed the season. But all of that is water under the bridge at this point. You have a new manager in, he knows how to win. He's won in multiple different organizations. Petrovic is now gone. You've washed your hands with that. It's over. It's a reset. It's a good roster. They really have. I don't think they've changed much from last year. I know they lost Gustavo Bo, which could potentially be a big hit for them because Vrioni has not proven himself yet, and that striker spot's definitely going to be a question mark. But I think the roster is really strong still, and they, I think they have that same roster that was challenging for second place in the East at some point last year, uh, for the most part. But now they have the off the field issues done with and they can reset, refocus. I think they're definitely a playoff team. I do not see them as a play in team. But my reason for putting them, I would honestly put them higher, but my reason for putting them a little bit lower is just for the fact that that striker spot is such a huge question mark for me.
And that's kind of where I'm leaning on. And he had good numbers at times when he started. He was poor, Vrioni, that is. My other one is the goalkeeper spot. You're looking at a team that for the last 2, 3 seasons had a goalkeeper who were performing at, top five PSXG plus minus numbers. And then we get this, and I think you mentioned it a lot was, Ravas comes in and you're wondering, uh, the resume, if you will, the CV, if you will, is not as impressive as other people that they brought in. So what's he going to be able to do? I and then you still have the Brandon By injury that you're working back from. Nick Lima's good, but Brandon By is next level. Um, Central mid looks pretty solid. Attacking, Barrera still being out, but Chankalai coming in is a great move. Esmir unproven, if yet exciting. And then Vrioni and Wood are the two kind of question marks that they still have there. So I just, there are other teams that I think can make a bigger jump there uh, than New England. Oh, I missed one. We should go back then. Montreal, you've got him out. I've got him in. What's the deal, bro?
I think they've got a good base in play, but this team is just missing like I'll call it a star for them. This team has always been, I feel like, missing that star player. And I just feel I feel like in the past you can kind of get away with not having a star player, but nowadays, I mean, if you look at the teams that make deep runs into playoffs and do well in the standings, majority of the time it's because they have a star player. And obviously, it could be a situation where they could create a star player. I think that's something we had talked about a little bit in the Montreal episode is they don't necessarily like they're not the team that's going to go splash 10 million to bring in some big name player. They're going to be the situation where they have to buy somebody on the cheaper and then hope that they can like hit a next level and kind of become the star player like they did with Jordy. But I just don't think I see that yet on the roster. Like I think they have good players in place, hence why I have them just out of the playoffs. But I think they're just missing that next level attacking player for them. Like I don't know what to expect for Kokoro. Yosef, as much as I love him, he's just not the same Yosef anymore. He's going to maybe be good for about 8 goals in the season. I just don't think that's enough to really consider him a star. Opoku, I think, has that potential, but didn't hit nearly the levels I think he would need to hit last season with Montreal in order to be considered that. I like Yankov a lot, but I don't think he's quite the star attacking player that they would need. So I just don't think I think they need that in order to make the push into the playoffs, just considering as we talked about how strong the East is. But there's a good core in place. I think there's some question marks in the back line. I really don't like Breza. I I'm not a fan of that in the goalkeeper position. And the center back situation is also like a little bit unsure. I don't think either of us were super high on Sosa. I can't remember exactly. Waterman's solid. I don't really know. I'm not like I think Campbell could have a good year, but I don't know if he's gonna play. So and then I've been diving really deep into this, but Their fullback spot as well is very thin. It's Raheem
It's
Edwards and
thin.
it's Ruan, and that's it. And
But
someone
you
would have
also
to
have
play.
players like Lapalainen who can fill in if you need
Right,
to.
right.
You've got other players who can fill in that role. But sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but you mentioned Breza in the goalkeeper department. Breza's not going to play. Jonathan Soroyce played 33 games last year, and he
Okay.
was like a
Yeah,
top
maybe you're
five.
right.
He was a top five goalkeeper,
I
right?
thought I
The
remembered.
reason I have them
Oh, sorry. Go
in
ahead.
the 8 spot instead of out is simply because of that time to mesh, right? We talked about the Colorados and the Portlands and players coming from inside the league to become one. They're doing what DC did last year, where they're taking all of the players from outside the league and bringing them in. So that transition is going to take a little bit longer, and then the um, the other big thing is the coach question, right? Is Courtois going to be the guy? I think it takes him a little bit of time to figure it out, but I do like them better than the players I have or the teams that I have out right now. So, all right, that's East. We've done West.